A number of trade unions have launched strike actions today. Meanwhile, residents of Kenya are mourning the loss of their loved ones in the recent tragedy that was reported in the area. Good afternoon. This is Lunchtime News on TV1. Let's start off with a look at your top stories this afternoon.
CEB engineers on Work to Rule campaign today. Two-third majority of the governing faction in parliament in jeopardy. Day of mourning in the Kenya town. Rivers in Rajarata overflow due to heavy rains. Hospital staff on strike today. Sweden's first female Prime Minister resigns hours after appointment.
Starting off with a look at those stories in detail now. A Work to Rule campaign will be staged by the Engineers Union of the Ceylon Electricity Board from 12 noon today. The announcement was made during a media briefing convened by the Engineers Union of the CEB. The trade union action was announced citing 6 demands. The demands include suspension of the irregular and illegal New Fortress LNG deal, continuation of the current tender procedure for the purchase of LNG, suspension of the program to divide the shares of the Ceylon Electricity Board, suspension of the amendment of the Ceylon Electricity Board Act No. 17 of 1969, refraining from politicizing the position of CEB General Manager, and the suspension of transfer of senior managers. According to the Work to Rule campaign, engineers of the CEB will report to work at 8:30 a.m. and leave at 4:15 p.m. The CEB engineers, however, added that during an emergency or sudden breakdown of power, engineers will report to work outside the said hours of work. CEB engineers will also step down from their duties in cabinet-appointed procurement committees, technical committees, project committees, negotiation committees and tender opening committees. The CEB added that under the trade union action, the members of the union will not support the chairman of the Ceylon Electricity Board. The CEB announced that if their demands are not met, the first phase of the Work to Rule campaign will be moved to its second phase. The CEB stressed that during the second phase of the Work to Rule campaign, the engineers will refrain from responding to sudden breakdowns of power supply and emergencies. Moving on in more local news, a discussion titled "A National Convention for Economy" was held in Colombo yesterday.
Representatives of many political parties in Parliament attended the discussion. They should have said this is the policy that we are going to follow and we cannot go against this. They should have said that there might be instances where we have to sell some loss-making institutions instead of just lying to the people and portraying a false sense of patriotism. They campaigned and created a public opinion against the sale of national assets and then got the people's mandate. Now they can't sell off assets. If they close down for 6 weeks, there will be power outages. In 1996, we were at least able to light a kerosene oil lamp, but this time we do not even have that. This economic crisis will lead to a massive outburst from within society. The last time I checked, the Ceylon Electricity Board was recording losses of 4,600 billion rupees. As my answer, I will have to say that we need a national policy. My friend MP Bandara sits next to me in Parliament. The way he responded to what I said and stated that we need to think as one country. If we can get fish from certain regions, why is that region not given the power to catch those fish? If a region can generate the power that they want, why can't they be given the power? A Tamil man thinking his way, a Sinhala man thinking his way, and a Muslim man thinking his own way is not collective thinking. That is what I told Raghavan. He had understood it in a different way. Recently, when I spoke in Parliament, the Finance Minister called me to his office and said what was said about loss-making public institutions is true, but we must do this slowly. If not, there will be a massive political uprising. So the same people who say that we need to develop this country at the end of the day work according to their political agendas. With regard to the issue surrounding the Yugadanavi power plant, I see nothing wrong in bringing that investment into the country. The issue is how that company has established a monopoly going beyond that. With regard to the West Container Terminal and the investments, there was no opposition. With regard to the East Container Terminal, there was already an agreement with Japan and India. We too must move forward without focusing only on short-term political goals.
The Road Development Authority says that swift action has been taken to construct the bridge between Kinya and Kurinyankani. The Director General of the Road Development Authority, LVS Veerakon, said that the RDA expects to complete the construction of the bridge within 6 to 9 months.
6 people, including 4 children, lost their lives while travelling on a makeshift ferry across the Kinya Lagoon as the construction of the bridge across the lagoon had been delayed. 20 people who sustained injuries are still being treated at hospital. The Trincomalee Magistrates Court ordered for the suspects arrested in connection to the incident to be further remanded until the 8th of December. The owner of the ferry as well as 2 other suspects were taken into custody last morning. The general public in Kenya expressed their condolences by raising white flags at their homes and business places today. Some shops in the town also remained closed for the time being. There was also a drop in students attending schools in Kenya today.
From tears of sorrow to tears of joy, building bridges of hope for our very own Sri Lankans. Kalugala, Dambulla, Watamada, Hambegamuwa, Neluwa, Gaul, Pokpitiya, Hunnaskiriya, Pilla Kumbura, Balangota, Vagolla, Udavavagama. Building bridges for the people to realize their aspirations.
There was a reluctance among consumers to purchase vegetables at economic centres across the island. The number of consumers and traders at economic centres have been dropping drastically during the recent past due to the sharp rise in prices of vegetables and the shortage in supply.
This was the situation at the Mani market in Colombo. Our correspondents reported that the vegetables supplied to the Mani market was lower than usual. The turnover of traders and consumers at the market was low as well. According to our correspondents, the vegetable prices were higher than usual today.
When people do not come here to purchase these stocks, they become rotten and we have to throw them away. There is no point in us bringing goods here as they don't sell.
The supply of vegetables to the Manikumbur Economic Centre in Katugastuta was limited as well.
We used to get about 1.2 million kilos of produce. It has now dropped to 100,000. Because the prices of vegetables are so high, people don't even come to the market. People are not buying goods and we do not have anything to sell.
Views were expressed on the political stage regarding the rising prices of vegetables and the decision to permit the import of chemical fertilizer into the country again.
We publicly acknowledge that the efforts taken by the government to transform Sri Lanka's agriculture sector into 100% organic cultivation will be unsuccessful on the same day that the government issued a gazette banning chemical fertilizer imports. Finally, the government has decided to allow chemical fertilizer imports into the country. However, we are still unclear on how the government will implement this decision because the decision is made in the morning and then reversed in the evening. The increase in the prices of vegetables is unbearable for the people. There's a fertilizer crisis on one end and the floods have also caused issues as well. At the same time, tourism has resumed in the country. As a result of that, hotels will start bulk purchasing fruits and vegetables once again. Then again, the food shortage will heavily impact the people. Even the food provided at Parliament has reduced.
A new extraordinary Gazette notification has been issued listing guidelines for the appointment of President's Councils.
The guidelines mentioned in the Gazette notification should be followed when appointing President's Councils. The guidelines were approved by the President under the powers vested with the President under Section 33(5) of the Constitution, and the Gazette notification was issued by the Secretary to the President, P.B. Jayasundara. With the issuance of the new guidelines, the guidelines regarding the appointment of President's Councils published by the Extraordinary Gazette notification number 2147/37 dated the 29th of October 2019 will be rendered null and void. According to the new guidelines, the appointment of President's Councils has been limited to a maximum of one batch per year, with not more than 10 President's Council appointed per year. The guidelines, however, will not be applicable when appointing state law officers as President's Council in an ex officio capacity. The full list of guidelines on appointing President's Council can be accessed on our website www.newsfirst.lk.
16 medical trade unions launched an island-wide trade union action today. The trade unions include nurses and paramedic trade unions.
The strike action was launched over several issues, including not granting promotions and salary anomalies. Although the clinic at the Colombo National Hospital and the OPD remained open, the dispensaries at the hospital were closed due to the strike. The SPC issued medicine free of charge to patients who were affected by the closure of the dispensary at the National Hospital. Operations at the Colombo South Teaching Hospital were also affected due to the strike action. Patients who visited the Kurunagala Teaching Hospital were also affected by the strike action. Patients who visited the Mathura District General Hospital faced difficulties due to the strike action as well.
Deputy Director General of Health Services Specialist Dr. Hemanta Herath expressed these views on the government's decision to relax health restrictions in certain sectors.
The Ministry of Health has relaxed restrictions for certain sectors in the country. We earnestly ask the public not to misuse these relaxations because there is a certain degree of risk involved when the Ministry of Health relaxes these restrictions. Therefore, we do not want the public to undertake additional risks that might result in adverse health effects. We were previously accused of saying we didn't lock the country down early enough. We have the risk of facing the same accusations once again. As a government, we do not make these decisions based on our discretion. But it won't be a surprise if the government goes into another lockdown if the health of the public is under threat.
Minister of Health Keheli Rambukwala says that the government is planning on relaxing certain health-related restrictions while still maintaining a certain degree of control.
විශේෂයෙන්ම මංගල උත්සව සඳහා ඒ වගේම රෙස්ටොරන්ට්ස් එහෙම නැත්නම් ආපනශාලා ඒ වගේම
We are planning to relax restrictions on weddings, restaurants, hotel visits and also event management activities as these sectors were heavily impacted during the recent past. We are placing our faith in the public to be smart and cautious when these restrictions are relaxed. We are requesting the public not to exploit these relaxations given to them. Doing so would result in tighter restrictions being imposed once again. That would not only put restrictions on the people's freedom, but it will also have adverse impacts on the economy.
අපි සියලු දෙනාගේම ජන ජීවිතයට විශාල පහරක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්.
The Director General of Health Services yesterday confirmed 23 COVID-19 deaths reported in the country on Tuesday, the 23rd, raising the total death toll in the country to 14,205. Meanwhile, 744 cases were reported in the country yesterday. Accordingly, the total cases reported in the country now stands at 559,604. 527,929 infected patients have fully recovered from the virus.
Shifting your attention now to some debates in Parliament, former President Maithripala Sirisena and State Minister Dayasiri Jayasekara today responded to the statement made by Minister Mahindananda Aluthgamage regarding the expenditure head of the former president.
Minister Mahindananda said that there were 200 vehicles. Minister Rohita Abegunawardena said there were 386 vehicles. Which one is the correct number? Our president today travels in 3 vehicles, which is commendable. But remember that the president and the prime minister have a fleet. We know these things. Think before you talk. Speaker, there are many things we can say too. This is not the first time Minister Mahindananda made this statement. He has done this on a number of occasions. We cannot keep our mouth shut when he slings mud at the party leader who leads 14 MPs of this government. There are no issues between the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and the government, so it is not fair to interpret it in such a way. It is not severe enough to consider this as a political issue between two parties.
දයාසිරි ජයසේකර මන්ත්‍රීවරයා විසින් සඳහන් කරලා කියලා තිබ්බා මේ වලවල් හැරුවොත් ගඳ ගොඩක් එයි කියලා. හැරුවොත් ගොඩක් දේවල් ගඳ එයි තමයි. ඒක මමත් පිළිගන්නවා. අර්ජුන් ඇලෝසියස්ගේ චෙක් වල ඉඳලා ගොඩක් ඒවා එන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ නිසා මම වලවල් ගැන කතා කරන්නේ නැහැ. කිසිදු පක්ෂ
There is no need to attack any party leader. There were allegations that Mahindananda has not stepped foot in paddy fields. I have done that. So there is no need to personally attack anyone. But we will retaliate when we are hit.
දානන්ද අලුත්ගමගේ ඇමතිතුමා බොහොම වේගවත් සංවේදී කතාවක් කළා. අපි නම් ගැහුවොත් ගහන්නේ නැහැ.
We will not retaliate when hit. We will simply have sympathy. We are not the type to fight. There is no issue in the statements made by Minister Mahindananda Aluthgamage about the expenditure heads of the president. The current president has set an example. They are comparing the expenditure during 1 year of my tenure and are trying to show the people that I have unnecessarily spent money. Certain expenditure heads were mentioned here as well. Honourable Speaker, I do not want to stay in glass houses and pelt stones because I set an example when compared to what my previous presidents did, especially when it comes to the usage of airplanes and helicopters. There are a lot of things I can say. The 2/3 majority of the Sri Lankan government is wielded by the 14 MPs representing the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. The members must think very carefully about the 2/3 majority and the governance. Over the past 5 decades, all governments have demonstrated what would happen when there are internal conflicts and the present government is an alliance.
ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ මන්ත්‍රීවරු 14 දෙනාගේ අතේ. ඒ නිසා ඔය ගහගත්තාම ඊළඟට මේකේ ඉන්න ප්‍රතිඵලය මීට කලින් ආණ්ඩු අවුරුදු 50ක 60ක කාලය තුල ඔප්පු කරලා තියෙනවා. ආණ්ඩු ඇතුලේ ගහගත්තාම මොකද සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ කියලා. අද මේ ආණ්ඩුව සන්දාන ආණ්ඩුවක්.
Today is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women.
This year, International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women is being celebrated under the theme Orange the World, End Violence Against Women Now. The UN states that nearly 1 in 3 women have been abused in their lifetime. According to a UN report, since the pandemic, 2 in 3 women have experienced some form of violence and are more likely to face food insecurity. The UN report, which compiled the data of 13 countries, added only 1 in 10 women said that victims would go to the police for help. The International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women will mark the launch of the Unite to End Violence Against Women campaign, an initiative of 16 days of activism, concluding on the day that commemorates the International Human Rights Day. Under the program, iconic buildings and landmarks will be lit up in orange to recall the need for violence-free future. In comparison to other countries in the world, Sri Lanka too has seen an increase in violence against women.
Opposition MPs today wore a band and a sticker calling for an end to violence against women. This was done in line with the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. The Met Department forecasts heavy showers above 100 millimeters at some places in the northern, north central, northwestern, western Sabaragamuwa and central provinces. Fairly heavy showers above 75 millimeters can be expected at some places elsewhere.
The highest rainfall of 219 millimeters was reported in Ahaliagoda during the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, 136 millimeters of rainfall was reported in Horana, 135 millimeters in Padukka and 111 millimeters in Valioya.
The prevailing low-level atmospheric disturbance over the southeast of Sri Lanka and adjoining southwest Bay of Bengal has developed into a low-pressure area and is currently located in the east of the island. Naval and fishing communities are advised to be cautious in this regard. The wind speed will be between 30 to 40 kilometers per hour in the sea area surrounding the island.
Senior scientist of the National Building Research Organization, Dr. Vasanta Senadira, said the landslide early warning issued to 11 districts is still in effect.
That's a wrap of lunchtime news on TV1 for this afternoon. To follow details of these stories and more, you can log on to our award-winning website www.newsfirst.lk. I'm Charlene Benedict for the News First team. Take care and God bless.